So, ladies and gentlemen, today we are joined by none other than KSW co-founder and co-promoter Martin Lewandowski. Martin, how are you today?
I'm very good. I'm very good. It's become really summer here in Poland, 20 degrees Celsius. I don't know how much is in Fahrenheit, but it's getting warmer and nicer.
Right. And for those of you just tuning into the podcast, Martin was recently the guest on the Fight Business podcast with myself and Patrick Auger. We delved a lot into KSW's business position amid the coronavirus pandemic. And we dealt with a lot of the business and logistical sides of that story. But in this interview, we're going to stick more to the fights themselves. So, Martin, in that interview, we discussed that the promotion will return to action on July 11th. You broke the headliner of that card, which is going to be the trilogy title unification bout between Mateus Camra and Norman Parke. Can you talk a little bit about that fight on that card?
These guys really hate each other. It's been like, it's always something sexy, when you can watch the guys, fighting twice already, but it will be the third. So another rematch in their case, it means just really big bombs and real war. It was the first two fights were really exciting. These guys got, a lot of bonuses. They are really for a long, Mateusz is unbeatable for years. So he proves himself in every aspect of MMA. And Norman, he's been like, unstoppable. You just hit this guy 10 times and he still stands on his feet, so unbreakable, really. So these two guys, it's a clash of really this beauty what you could see in MMA. So I recommend to watch two fights with these two guys, and then wait for the final fight trilogy, because after that, regardless what happened, we are not going to make a fourth one.
Right, and that definitely is one of the fights that will keep fight fans engaged. It's one of those fights that everyone needs to see. Now, what's very interesting is Gamrot was away from the promotion for some time. He was not actively competing, which led to Norman Parke capturing the interim title. Is Gamrot still considered the champion by the promotion?
Yes, he's the real champion, to be honest. He holds two titles in his hand, and that's true. We've been in kind of difficult talks with him, so he missed, I think, more than a year right now of fighting. So, but at the end, we found the common ground, and the agreement is still valid, and I'm glad that Gamrot is still in our team.
Right, and you mentioned that there were difficult talks there when it came to the contract. Was that deal renegotiated, or is Gamrot returning on his old fight deal?
How it happens with the fighters, that's the only, I think, one of, maybe not the only, but one of the minors, that the fighters, especially in MMA, their dreams become very unstable, and they change very quick. So of course we were dealing with Gamrot wanting to change the contract and going to UFC, but we spent so much time, promotion, and money to build this guy. So it was like our one of the option that he can live on certain conditions. So it's just like I always try to explain the fighters, or not even the fighters, that it's like in a bank. When you loan something, you need to pay back even the percentage or something. You just can't just, you take the money and you just go, and there is no interest. There is, so sometimes it happens in MMA too often with that, and I think that's one of the problem, that the fighters doesn't see the global picture or the whole picture. They only see their own. I understand that. I also have dreams. I also developed, different companies and etc. And the world is changing. You as a person is changing, but that's what I, I'm saying that the MMA fighters' dreams are changing too often. So.
Right, and I can certainly understand that's a very difficult subject as a promoter to discuss fighter negotiations, especially if the two sides aren't seeing eye to eye. But you bring up that the fighters have different motivations. Gamrot, for example, may have wanted to go to the UFC. There's another fighter on the roster who has been outspoken of late, speaking about wanting to leave or having offers from other promotions. Dricus Du Plessis, a champion within the promotion, former champion. Can you talk a little bit about his current situation there and the ways in which that has been going down between Du Plessis and KSW?
I mean, yeah, we are also in a kind of conflict right now because we also promote and we have a lot of plans regarding Du Plessis, and the strange thing is that he has two managers, and that's something which really makes, I think, this problem and conflict, because those two managers seems to have a different options. Of course, at the end of the day, the fighter is a decision maker, and that's his life, his career. But I also feel kind of, I must say, disappointed, because when the fighters are coming and telling you that he's going to feel and like at home, and he wants to stay in KSW as long as possible, and when the times become more comfortable for the fighters, they try to seek other ways, and so we are in the process of talking and negotiating what next. Of course, with the fighters who so desperately want to leave, you can't do nothing, to be honest, as long as some contract and agreement is being fulfilled, because this is why you are signing the agreement, and based on that, we also have to fill that agreement. If we say that we have to pay him and give some certain amount of fights, so we feel we have to do it. It's our obligation. So from the other party, I expect the same. If we have the contract, of course, when it's finished, we don't sign the other agreement, no problem. So to be honest, I don't know how it's going to end. Difficult talks.
Yeah, definitely a difficult subject, difficult negotiations, no doubt. I did want to discuss some other fights that KSW has coming up and some other fighters. Now, we mentioned Gamrot is now returned to the promotion. He is a two-weight champion at lightweight and featherweight. Has he retained the featherweight title as well? I know there was an interim fight where Saladin Parnasse emerged as the interim champion.
What were you saying? Sorry?
That he is the champion in two weight classes still. Is that accurate? He is still the champ in both.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there were interim titles created in both the lightweight and featherweight divisions. Norman Parke won the interim lightweight title. They are now going to be fighting on July 11th to determine who is the true champion once and for all in the unification. And at featherweight, Saladin Parnasse, who is an emerging star, undefeated, an incredible young talent in KSW's featherweight division, he won the interim featherweight title, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So will we see a fight between Parnasse and Gamrot?
I can't tell you. It's not because I don't want. Probably the problem is that Gamrot can't go down with the weight right now. I mean, it's not maybe probably. That's what he said that he can't do, and the issue is the weight. So there might be, for example, a fight between Parnasse and Gamrot, but it can't be for the title. So if you are talking about the fight, if we come to agreement with both teams about the catchweight, probably yes. But if we are talking about or asking me about the title fight, I can't tell, because I don't know when was it. I think it was December when Mateus said that he can't make that weight again. It was too risky and too dangerous for him, and just he just can't. He probably need to chop his leg to make that weight, so it's impossible for him. So
right, and we certainly don't want to see him chopping off his leg. So if he's not able to go back down to the featherweight division, will Parnasse be promoted to the undisputed champion?
Yes, true.
Got it. And of course, that's a very important two divisions for KSW, two very important champions, Gamrot and Parnas. So that's very interesting insight. Another fight that KSW could make that is one of the biggest, and it has two of the biggest fighters, is Scott Askham, the middleweight champion, and Mamed Khalidov, an absolute legend of the sport. And for many years, the face of KSW. Obviously, they did fight once already. Is that rematch in the works?
It's one of the options. Yes, that's actually the matchmaking which internet or these two guys brought, because we were not thinking about it, to be honest. We had a different plan for Scott and we had a different plan for Mamed. But right now, when the fight will become so exciting, so we've been considering this fight as something might happen this or maybe next year. But as I said, it's one of the options. These options for those two guys, there are so many, and these guys are so popular that everybody, really, literally everybody wants to fight them. So any kind of mixture of these two fighters with anybody, to be honest. Of course, these two are top stars. That will be exciting. But we are really considering this as a something we might do even this year.
Yeah, and that would be an absolutely amazing fight. And of course, you say that the internet has been pushing you towards this fight. When you have both fighters come out to the ring in sports cars, I think you're going to get that level of excitement for the fight.
That's one of the...
Your dogs are on the screen.
Yeah, one of them. So, yeah, sorry, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem at all. I was saying, of course, there's going to be that level of excitement. Two amazing fighters, and they're coming out to the cage in sports cars. So, of course, you're going to get that additional level of excitement. But there is someone in that division who I think a lot of fight fans are keeping their eye on, Albert Duraev, an incredible fighter, a great talent, a big signing for KSW. Do you have any news about when his promotional debut might take place and against whom?
Actually, he was considered to make his debut in March this year. One of the shows we had to cancel because of the COVID-19. And now we are waiting what happened with the borders, with the travel restriction, how far we can go, and who can come to Poland and just be safe and is allowed to travel between the countries. As we know, everything is right now opening, and people are, or the countries are testing a new way of living with the virus, but still there are a lot of restrictions which are not allowing us to bring every fighter we would like to.
Absolutely. I can definitely see how that might be an issue. And it's something that has been plaguing promotions around the world. The UFC, which has been holding events, has had to pick and choose who can be able to fight based on where they live, depending on border and travel restrictions. So certainly a very valid concern. Now, going back to that July 11th event, a fight that has been reported in Polish media is that we're going to see Borys Mańkowski and Marcin Wrzosek, the Polish zombie, that fight being put together. Are you able to confirm that fight?
Yes, that's another second, tasty bite for the show, KSW 53, 11th of July.
Yeah, and that fight is certainly expected to be fireworks. A lot of guys in the promotion that we've already discussed. We did discuss Duraev's potential debut with the promotion. There's the biggest guy in sports right now, the biggest name in sports, Martyn Ford, is under KSW contract.
It's literally the biggest.
Literally the biggest. I mean, that guy is gigantic. Can we talk a little bit about Martyn Ford and if there are any plans for him to make his debut anytime soon?
Yeah, actually, that was before the pandemic, so he's supposed to have his debut in one of the international show we put, in different country around Europe. So probably it will be England. Right now we can't tell, but of course Martin is on our list, and we want to, give him a fight as soon as possible, to be honest. So.
Yeah, and I definitely know a lot of fight fans are waiting to hear that announcement so they can see the way that fight might play out. Something I'd like to touch on is the Norman Parke story. Now, in our Fight Business podcast episode, which you can find on the Body Locks YouTube channel, you mentioned that Norman is currently in Poland. Is that right? He's doing his camp there. And I've interviewed Norman in the past ahead of his interim title fight, and he told me that one of the conditions for that fight and one of the things that KSW had done is put him in Poland and have him train. And you said that you were going to be taking care of his stay. Can you talk a little bit more about that relationship as far as KSW providing the camp and the lodging for Norman Parke in Poland right now?
Yes, I mean, just we realized that even with our great Polish fighters, we need something which brings also attention with the international crowd, media also. So we need to have somebody from outside of Poland. And Norman, luckily for us, he actually has a second team here based in Poland. It's called Ankos. And he was actually trained, I don't remember for how many fights, but he was doing his training camps here in Poland. So he already have some roots or trainers, so logistic and kind of team built here in Poland. So it's much easier, or it was much easier for us to bring him over because we don't have to arrange every single aspect of preparation. So, but this is only the case with Norman, and this is kind of unique in terms. That's what I said. He has like a second home, and that's Poland. He has his team, he has his coach, he has all the supporters, training, sparring partners, etc. So the only issue was if we can bring him over, and how long it will take, if he's going to be quarantined. If yes, so 2 weeks. Okay, so we need to adjust this time, preparation time, taking under considerations that he might lose even those 2 weeks. So everything so far works okay. He is in Poland. I'm meeting him in 2 days, talking about the whole situation here and find out how is he. But he seems to be motivated. I think he really desperately needs the fight, and like most of the fighters, to be honest, the major income for him, and probably also for most of the fighters around the world. So plus, luckily for us, so this is the second gift from the universe that we had. Gamrot decided to do another fight with us, and this trilogy. So everything we put together, and I think it's really good.
Right, certainly. And again, I cannot state just how much I'm looking forward to that fight. I mean, the first two were great, so the third is likely going to be great as well. It's a very big fight for the promotion. Something else that's big for the promotion, you announced 2 new signings this week, 2 new fighters, and I apologize for what I can only imagine is going to be very bad mispronunciation, trying to get these names right. But Lejierski and Andrzej Grzebik, is that correct?
Grzebik.
Am I close?
Yeah, Grzebik. Yeah, but very close. But with all those Polish surnames, it's been a problem for all non-Polish speaking, and so yeah. But
certainly. Yeah,
even better if you pronounce this way, because if you heard the way how it's supposed to be pronounced for international people don't understand. So but it's better, it's like kind of nickname,
right.
Very close, to be honest.
I love the Polish Zombie is a great example of that. It's much easier to say Polish Zombie than Martin Wrzosek.
Yes, Wrzosek.
I'm not even doing that right.
Yeah, Wrzosek, Grzebik. So yeah, I know it's okay. People will understand. If not, so they need to Google, do some work to find out.
Right, and that helps out too, because now they're searching for that fighter. So specifically with these 2, I mean, obviously Grzebik is an FEN champion, and then Lejierski is undefeated. He's going to be fighting for both KSW and Octagon, another promotion in Europe. Can you talk a little bit about those 2 signings and what they mean for the promotion?
We've been trying to find kind of common ground and way of cooperating between the promotion. Actually, from the beginning, when we put a show together, we were never excluding some kind of cooperation. I've been working with Bellator, I've been working with PFL and with RIZIN, Japanese RIZIN, exchanging fighters. Usually that's the most common cooperation. Here in Poland it was a little bit more difficult because we are on the same ground, and we are kind of close competitors. Of course, KSW is completely different level than the other organization, but we thought that this is a good time also because of the situation which happened to everyone, that exchanging fighters program might be something which works for everybody, because it works usually both ways. Yes, if we have, for example, some Czech fighters or with some Polish fighters, we might exchange it. We're talking about the federation based in those two countries. That's why I mentioned those two nationalities. So situation with Grzebek was a little bit different because he had some issue with his previous employer. So it was for us, maybe I can't say easier, but a little bit more clear ground that we don't have to negotiate or fight with the other promotion. Actually, that's what I've been announcing publicly. If he's not going to have his contract done or fixed somehow, so we are not going to hire him. And this is what I will expect, and that other promotion will also follow that rules. And to be honest, and I might say that after I think 10 years of knowing people from UFC, that was the case with Zawada. When UFC first time asked for the permission, they sent the email, which was kind of unusual for me because it never happened before. So I like the way the things are doing right now, that promotions are not fighting with each other. Of course we are fighting in the sense because we are running the business and we have to protect our sources, but still there are a lot of ways we can cooperate, and in these two cases shows that it's possible. With Polish-based organization, we can exchange fighters. Of course, not everybody, not everyone, but still there are a lot of fighters which we, for example, are not using. Sorry to using that word, but so often, or they have some issue with some fighters, or just sometimes those puzzle doesn't fix. And with the Octagon, the Czech promotion, actually this relation is kind of new, but it's become very pragmatic. That when we start talking, there was no chance we could bring anybody from outside of the country. So we look around who we have as a Polish fighters who are in the different promotion, and these owners from Octagon seems to be very reasonable guys, and they understand, and of course it's something which they will benefit out of it also, because we are going to promote these two fighters as an ex-champion or as a current champion of the promotion. So I think that's the way it should be. Of course, that's what I mentioned. It won't be every time so nice, or we are not going to come to agreement every time, but still, if you don't try, you will never know.
Right, yeah, and I very much appreciate how in-depth you were just now about co-promotion, because that is my final question for you. Obviously, KSW has been in talks with RIZIN Fighting Federation in Japan, with the Professional Fighters League in the United States, and with Bellator also in the US. Can you talk a little bit about the way KSW views co-promotion with those entities, and what, if any, plans there are to co-promote in the future?
The most important, the fighters. I think that every promotion has the fighters which are not working for the promotion, but you have a contract. Sometimes you just feel that the fighter, even sometimes in some cases, even the champion of the division, in this exchanging fighters program, that's how I call it. I really truly believe that we might do for both promotion, good enough. Like, for example, with RIZIN and KSW, when we are based in Europe, especially, we concentrate on the countries in Europe, Japan, time difference, different mentality. We are not competitors. We are living in the same planet. We are doing the same job for living. We are promoters, but we are not competitors, really. Like, RIZIN doesn't have a need to come to Europe. We are not going to Japan. That's easy case. With Bellator, it's a little bit more complicated because they become more visible in Europe, and I think that's where the problem has started. When they were doing the show in US, I think it was more easy to exchange thoughts. Right now, and actually, I know these guys the best in the industry. I know them for a long time. I'm talking about Scott Coker and Mike Hogan. But to be honest, we are I can't say it in conflict, but we can't do one thing which I offered them, and actually it was something also which media pick up very easily. I'm talking about confronting two champions, and even in that case, I was willing to, I don't know the better word, but borrowing the fighters between the organization, and we are talking about the fight Roberto Soldic, our welterweight champion, versus Paul Daley, their champion, their also a big star. But that was, my proposition, and I have a feeling like they don't want to use that opportunity because it will benefit for both organization. Of course, we need to talk about the money for the fighters. We need to talk about the times. There are different, and I mean different. There are a lot of things which need to be discussed. But if you find, I mean, we are a private company, KSW. It belongs to me and my business partner. Bellator is owned by TV. Completely two different, realities. With PFL, this is very, very new relation with Ray Seyfarth. Met him personally last year, actually, when I was on the MMA Fighters Awards with KSW and myself. We were nominated, and we started exchanging the fighters, or even talking very deeply about the fighters and about what you want to do with this fighter, what's your plan for his career, and I think that in that case, maybe there are not many fighters. If I can recall, there are maybe 2 or 3 names which I can't say we exchanged because they were like more for us, then they become more PFL, then PFL is returning the fighters to KSW. But I think this movement or this cooperation in many ways have more sense than without it. And especially in such uncertain times we are living right now, so I use this word again, borrowing the fighters, I think will help everybody.
Certainly, and I just want to go back to one of the answers there because the Wi-Fi was a little bit shaky. Regarding Bellator, you said one of the plans was to have Roberto Soldic, KSW's welterweight champion, go and fight Bellator's welterweight champion, Douglas Lima. Was that accurate?
No, Paul Daley.
Paul Daley, okay. So it was going to be Roberto Soldic, Paul Daley. I would imagine that fight would be targeted for England in the United Kingdom.
What do you mean by targeting?
As far as where the location for that fight would be, I'm trying to see if the plan would have been in Europe, given that
we didn't go so far with those talks. My idea was to do a first fight in KSW. Probably it would be in England, and the second because I wanted the agreement would be also for the guarantee rematch, regardless of the verdict. So then they will decide when Roberto is going to fight. So we are kind of give the fans the opportunity to check who is better, but not only with one fight, but also with 2 fights. And I think it will be a good hit for both parties.
Right, but that has is that still an active plan, or has Bellator's continuance in Europe as they continue to grow and put on shows in Europe kind of brought that negotiation to a standstill?
Yeah, that's what I said. That was in the past, and that's why I said when they were more based in US, there was no conflict, and when they become more visible in Europe, then I think it would become a sort of a problem. But I didn't got such a clear message. I just figure out that probably that's the issue. But I know fighters want it. I know I want it. So we need to wait for the official answer from the Bellator. I mean, I don't want to put them in some position, you know, that they need to explain. They can do whatever they want. I'm just telling and being honest with you what was my plan, and I think really there is no tricks over here, and there is no Mickey Mouse business. It just, you know, we are doing this for the sport, for the fans, and sometimes I feel we can really exchange the fighters, especially if we are not, because we are not 100% competitors. I mean, maybe in the future we will be, but not for now.
Right. And I definitely appreciate the honesty there. So thank you very much for that. Just one final question, because I know it is getting late for you. So once again, thank you so much for your time. I understand that appearing on 2 shows is no easy task.
You know, but nobody's like, you know, 9:30, but he's snoring. So I just, you know, shake, you know, behave.
Right. So yeah, just one final question specifically about co-promoting with RIZIN and PFL. PFL is obviously tournament based for the most part. They do hold fights outside of the tournament, like they did with Brendan Loughnane in the last season. Would you enter a KSW fighter into the Grand Prix?
No, there was no such talks, especially that day tournament or series, you know. So it's so the fighters will be linked with them for longer periods of time. So I mean, I didn't have any talks like that they want to sign the agreement with our fighter. That would be, it depends about what kind of fighter. I think there are so many fighters that nobody has to block for a year or two a fighter. We are talking more like a 1-2 fight deal kind of agreement. So that's more likely is going to happen. That's what happened with Satoshi Ishii and with the other 2 guys. You know, we've been in talks with Ray Seyfeld.
Absolutely. Martin, thank you very much for your time. I greatly appreciate that. I hope your dog stops snoring and you have a great rest of your night.
All right. Thank you very much for the support.
Have a good one.